In Nebraska and across the nation, there's a growing recognition of the important role that science, technology, engineering, and math, frequently referred to as the STEM fields, play in helping young people succeed in today's globally connected, highly competitive economy. There's also a growing recognition that there's simply not enough time during the traditional school day to provide young people with hands-on, engaging learning experiences they need to master these important STEM concepts. That is why STEM learning opportunities for Nebraska's youth are so important to the future of our state's youth and to our economic vitality. In this program, the first in NET's two-year initiative examining the state of education in Nebraska, we're going to delve into the intersection of out-of-school time programs and STEM. Hello, I'm Ken Schroeder, President of the Nebraska Museum Association and Deputy Director at the Strategic Air and Space Museum, where I oversee educational programs including after-school and summer STEM programs for educators and youth. Over the next hour, we will hear from some of the leading voices at the national, state, and local levels who are involved with the connection of out-of-school time, or OST, and expanded learning opportunities in science, technology, engineering, and math, known as the STEM fields. Both are becoming the most promising initiatives among educators, inside and outside of the classrooms all across the country. After examining the national landscape and the implications for Nebraska, we'll highlight emerging partnerships that are taking place in communities across the state to provide youth with additional STEM learning experiences. Throughout the discussion, we will identify opportunities for citizens like you to get involved in supporting the development of more high-quality, expanded science, technology, engineering, and math learning opportunities in your communities. We also want to hear from you. Join in the conversation on Twitter at #OSTSTEM. Now let's learn more about STEM. Joining us via Google Plus are three national leaders at the forefront of connecting research to action at the intersection of after-school programs and STEM. Ron Ottinger is Executive Director of the Noyes Foundation, a leading national foundation supporting informal science and STEM education. Ron, why do you, as a leading national foundation like Noyes, view OST STEM as such an important topic, and how is OST different than traditional school day programs?
Well, thanks, Ken, and I appreciate being on the program. Just a little background on the Noyes Foundation, which was founded in the memory of Bob Noyes, the co-founder of Intel and the inventor of the integrated circuit, which became the microchip. So our mission has been to get the vast majority of kids in the country engaged and interested in science so that they would care to learn about science in school and become informed citizens and participants in their communities. We see after-school settings as a natural place, either on a school campus or off the school site in a 4-H club or Girl Scout Council, for example, for kids to really learn about the wonder of science that's all around them, to learn about the design in the engineering process, to get engaged with technology, particularly for young girls, to see that science is something that's interesting and engaging, whether it's the science of cooking or the science of going to the moon, as a number of women were on the space shuttle, that there is a place and an increased role for young girls in science, engineering, and technology. We've teamed up with the Mott Foundation, which has 40 after-school networks across the country, in states across the country. Our goal is to get rich and quality science programming into each of these state efforts. And Nebraska's Community Learning Center network was one of the first states to come on board in this effort. The other that I would mention from a public agency standpoint is the 21st Century Learning Center program, which is one of the major sources of support for after-school programming for low-income students in the nation. Has made science and STEM programming a priority for 21st century. And they're developing different approaches, both online and in communities, to help 21st Century Learning Center programs get engaged with science and STEM. So this is a growing effort and an important time for seeing the after-school space come together and really help schools learn how to get kids engaged in discovery projects and to help as the new standards, the next generation science standards come on board.
It's fantastic work that you do. Also joining us, Dr. Anita Krishnamurthy, sorry about that. After School Alliance is her programming. Anita is the director of the STEM policy. Anita, what are some of the major issues you and your colleagues at the After School Alliance see emerging on a national horizon around the intersection of STEM and expanded learning opportunity programs that could impact programs in Nebraska?
Thanks, Ken. So there's tremendous opportunity and interest here in DC and elsewhere in the nation to look at how we increase opportunities for children to learn. And a lot of the energy and momentum is really focused on the school day, which is appropriate because that's definitely a primary learning space for children. But we have to remember that children spend less than 20% of their waking hours in a classroom, and learning is not restricted to when they're in that space. So as we look at creating these expanded learning opportunity programs and perhaps restructuring the school day, it's really important to remember that there's tremendous value in having spaces and opportunities that really look different from a traditional school day so that you reach learners of all different stripes. And this is especially crucial for STEM because there are populations that are traditionally underrepresented in STEM fields and may not feel very welcome in the more traditional settings. So the intersection of some of the socio-emotional dimensions of learning that underpin after-school programs, such as in developing an interest, developing a STEM learner identity, engagement with scientific practices, and the academic dimensions of learning often help to provide an entry point or a re-entry point for young people who've been historically disenfranchised or not included in the STEM disciplines and pursuits. And this is starting to be recognized as more and more states start to build out their expanded learning opportunity programs. And many of them are being very innovative in how they structure these so that the additional time doesn't look and feel like yet more school, but really looks and feels different. And so they're using that time to give young people an opportunity to engage with STEM professionals and mentors in their communities, do hands-on STEM projects, do apprenticeships in research labs or businesses in their communities. A lot of different kinds of things that really help to bring these disciplines to life and show the students how to apply some of what they may be learning during the school day and why that's relevant to their lives and their communities. And this is not always possible during a traditional school day because there are many constraints on what schools have to do in the time that they have. And so it's really important that young people see STEM fields as interesting and fulfilling and fun for them to actually want to pursue them, because we know that just getting the good grades is not sufficient. So as we think about the entire ecosystem of learning, schools, communities, families, schools and after-school programs or other out-of-school time programs play very distinct roles in helping young people grow up to be successful adults. And I think that we're starting to see a lot of very interesting and exciting opportunities come about as a result when people are structuring expanded learning opportunity programs around the country.
It's exciting for sure. Joining us is Dr. Gil Noem, who's the director of the Program in Education, After School, and Resiliency, or PAIR, at Harvard. Gil is also a leading national researcher in the field of identifying quality OST STEM experiences. Dr. Noem, what does national research and practice say about the impact of participation in quality OST STEM activities in the lives of young people, and what does quality OST STEM really look like?
Thank you, Ken. I appreciate being on this program. And we all look at Nebraska as a model, as an example. So it will be really exciting to see what research and evaluation also comes out of your statewide initiative. In terms of your question, a real formative study that really tells us that we know exactly what the impacts are of after school and OST time and science does not exist yet. We have to acknowledge that. But what does exist are hundreds of evaluation studies, many of them funded by NSF and foundations like the Noyce Foundation that are really spearheading the effort to prove that what we're doing in out of school time really makes a difference. And those hundreds of studies do give us a picture that actually in out of school time, when there's quality, and I'll get back to that question about the quality in a second, kids get very engaged and interested and curious about scientific exploration. They are more apt to actually take courses in science in high school and in college. They're more likely to actually go to college, and they're more likely to actually have skills and competencies that sometimes really have an academic basis, but doesn't have to be entirely academic, which is really the point I'm also trying to make. We should be very careful not to measure our outcomes just on the basis of test scores. It's a very kind of seductive thing to say, well, after school is going to increase test scores in the school day. But we really want to primarily in the out of school time space, get kids hooked, get kids interested, get them to really kind of commit to the scientific enterprise. And that should be hands-on. And that gets me to quality, to your second part of your question. In terms of quality, we have actually really developed now a measure called DOS that kind of scientifically can observe programs and where we can get a sense of what are the dimensions of quality. And we define 12 of them. I won't go through the 12, but one of the things we're finding over and over again, that the programs that seem to have a stronger kind of impact, a stronger connection to kids, have focus, have age-appropriate curricula, have hands-on activities, focus on reasoning and inquiry, like ask good questions rather than right and wrong answers, and are relevant to the kids' lives. So I think that's why we have such a chance to bring together youth development, which is the core of after school, the kind of focus on assets, on strengths, on kids really learning because they have agency, and link it to science, which is academic, which is interesting, which has a future, which is relevant for work, and meld that together into a kind of real agenda that is bigger than school and bigger than after school, but is really about the whole child getting engaged in learning.
It's so important. Let's go back to a comment that you made, Anita, just a little bit ago about the importance that these out-of-school programs look differently from the in-school, the formal education. You talked about the fact that they have to have a different look, a different feel, a different, maybe we could say maybe a different vibe about that experience. What do you see, and what are examples that you see that are working well in that?
Well, there's a lot of different kinds of programs that, happen in the after-school time. Some of them happen at science centers and museums. Some of them happen in school cafeterias. In fact, there's some interesting research that shows that if there are many school teachers who also teach in the after-school setting, and there's research that shows that if the after-school program actually happens in the classroom, then the after-school program starts to feel just like the school day, and just changing the setting, having it in the gym, having it be in the cafeteria, just changes the way I think the teachers and the students interact with each other. And I think a lot more, open-ended, as Gil was saying earlier, a lot more open-ended inquiry-based activities can happen in the after-school hours. And the other thing that can definitely happen in the after-school hours that's often much harder to do during the school day is this whole notion of permission to fail, that you can try things and you can try them over and over again, and there doesn't need to be a right answer. that you get to that day or even that week. It could be an open-ended exploration that you take on for the entire month or the entire semester. And so I think these are the kinds of things where both the facilitators and the students have the permission to sort of interact and engage with STEM in a very different way than they might be able to during the school day.
And when you were discussing earlier, Dr. Noem, about the fact that we don't really have the research in hand yet, but we're moving that direction. What is your hope as you look at this in Nebraska and other places? What is your hope? Do you have a timeline, or what's the discovery that you would most like to see come that we'd be able to hold on to as a tangible piece to evaluate and to really chart the course of our future?
I really did not want to say there aren't really good studies and a lot of people are doing good research, but one of the problems is that we never know whether the program made the difference or whether all the other effects, TV, school, etc., the surrounded by science made the difference. We also don't know whether kids who go to after school programs might be already more motivated to learn science than the kids who don't show up. So that's the kind of research we have to do. But I think in collaboration with the Noyce Foundation, we have begun a strategy where we are inviting programs across a whole state to join in and to begin to use the same instruments. You know, sometimes they take 10, 15 minutes pre-post. And if we do that, we can actually aggregate the data, put it together, and at the end, we have some pretty good understanding what's happening, not just program by program, but for a whole initiative like the initiative in Nebraska.
It's wonderful. Ron, I'd like to ask, if, from your perspective as somebody who's invested and committed to seeing this occur, what would be the best outcome or the best result that you could see through your investment in Nebraska and the other places you've committed to partnering with? What is your hope?
Well, we want to go beyond the 20 to 25% of the kids who, I think, as Ken, as you alluded to in one of your questions, you know, are already engaged with science or already on a path to a STEM major in college or to a career. As you know, we have heard from the Nebraska state officials as well as governors and from the president and legislators in Washington. I think no matter which side of the aisle you're on, I think there's a general agreement that STEM jobs are jobs that have STEM skills, you know, are the future for many kids and for our country. So we've got to go beyond that 20 to 25%. And that one of the ways we think that is possible is if we help kids really see the value and the excitement about science as they are involved in a robotics competition or, you know, as they, you know, are engaged in their own process of discovery at a science center or in a club or in after school. So our hope is that we can really turn kids on to science and that we can really have a movement in this country to see that, as in many of the other countries that are succeeding with science, that you know, we've been a leader in innovation and we will continue to be, but we need many more kids to see that science, engineering, technology has a value to them.
And I think this discussion is another kind of point that shows the investment of the support of the private sector, the research community, all these points all coming together. I think there's some very exciting days ahead. And thank you all for your contribution to support that effort and to make it happen. With this as our starting point, in our next segment, we're going to deepen our focus on Nebraska and see how expanding learning opportunities relate to the Nebraska youth. We also want to hear your thoughts on STEM and the value of out-of-school time. Join in the conversation on Twitter at #OSTSTEM. Joining me to talk more about Nebraska's educational landscape are two individuals whose work is well known in Nebraska education. Catherine Lang is the Commissioner of the Nebraska Department of Labor and the Director of Nebraska Economic Development. Jim Woodland is the Director of Science for the Nebraska Department of Education. Welcome to both of you. I want to start by asking, out of this conversation we just heard, how do you feel that resonates with us right here in Nebraska?
I think there's many things that they have said nationally that apply to Nebraska, and we are doing already for that. But of course, it's always important that we look at and examine what they're saying and put it through the lens of Nebraska.
And since we're right here looking at this community opportunity that we have here, let's talk about the vantage point that you have to foster these stronger relationships between schools and communities, specifically using the out-of-school or the OST STEM opportunities that we're providing. How does that play the best to come and bring this kind of strength and this opportunity with community?
Well, the state of Nebraska and the Departments of Economic Development and Labor are committed partners in the efforts to increase the level of workforce talent in Nebraska. Out-of-school time programs provide partnership opportunities between education and the business community, its leaders, and the volunteers who desire to help our students. But there are challenges in reaching the students. The classroom day is full, and many business partners would find it difficult to work with the schools during the workday. So the out-of-school time programs provide that opportunity where business and education can meet to help our children.
And let's think about that specifically in connecting that opportunity. If kids are going to be successful in our workforce, our development that we're focusing right here, how do you see businesses being able to be a part of that partnership specifically? How could they cultivate or connect with the community, the students in their community?
There are many ways that we are seeing great examples of the business community and the education community joining together for the support of children. You can see a strong connection when you are talking about the Nebraska Advanced Manufacturing Coalition and their Dream It, Do It program.
Yeah, great program.
As well as programs, for example, like Avenue Scholars or other mentoring programs such as Boys and Girls Clubs or Teammates, where they are bringing connection with the business community and our students in K-12 education.
And Jim, what do you see right now about the educational side? How do we find you in formal education connecting to these out-of-school STEM opportunities?
What I see with informal science education with OST is that they are promoting learning. So the learning that we see taking place in school, they're simply enhancing and providing a lot more opportunities for that. They're bringing science home to the students. They can see that science happens outside of the classroom for that. They also get a chance to see themselves doing science. They get more experience in that, and that could lead to future careers in science. So there's a lot of things that can happen positively.
Do you think right now that there's an emerging experience in our state that's really kind of awakening to the reality that education doesn't just occur when the bell rings and then when the bell rings at the end of the day, it's over, that this extended opportunity for learning is dynamic and going on all the time? Do you think that's beginning to happen? Where do you kind of gauge this right now?
I think it's more than beginning to happen. It's sort of the response to lifelong learning that we've set as a goal of education, and we're seeing that happen in all of these programs.
And like even with you, Catherine, being representative here today at this discussion, the reality is I think our business climate in our state has really embraced the reality that we've got to do something very intentional and very aggressive if we're going to make sure our kids are ready for success.
You're absolutely right. One of the things that we hear consistently from our business leaders is the need for high skill talent in the workforce. One of the things the state is doing is promoting and working on attracting, growing, developing businesses that will develop high-skill, high-wage, high-demand jobs in Nebraska, which will then allow Nebraska to keep the competitive advantage that we have been developing over the last numbers of years. But without a talented workforce to support that, it will not happen. So programs, out-of-school time programs, and specifically focused in the STEM area are going to be really important for every level of student. What we want to do is be able to reduce the anxiety that many students may experience when they're dealing with science, technology, engineering, and math. We want to provide practical applications so that they can understand, what do I do with this when I'm out there in the workforce.
How real is this?
How real is this? How does this apply? And so these programs are going to be very, very important for those young people to be able to nurture and understand what is it that I can do in the Nebraska economy when I'm out of school.
And I think it's really important for us today in this discussion to help those who are viewing realize that this educational extension, this extending of this learning opportunity, isn't just resting in the hands of teachers or even in an organized situation with maybe the business community with a program, but this extension of learning is really occurring with grandma and grandpa when they are riding down the street in the car talking. It's happening around the kitchen table. I think it's a movement really that takes those viewers who are watching right now to realize, wait a minute, I am a part of the out of school time learning experience and become partners. What happens in the formal educational world when you see aggressive partnership and participation by those who are committed and related to those children on a loving relationship, when it's parents or grandparents, extended families, care providers? What happens, Jim, in a formal educational world when those players step up and become engaged actively with their learning experience of their children?
Teachers see students who are excited about learning, that they're not feeling isolated, they're feeling they have the support of the community, they're willing to go out and do even more for their students for that because they don't think they're going it alone for that. It just improves the overall environment, the learning atmosphere, and ultimately the learning of the students.
And I think this whole idea of partnership, we can take it a little bit farther even in our consideration, because there are formal opportunities where the business community can come involved because you've identified needs and skills that are lacking or maybe need to be reinforced. But I think that strategic role, that we're all committed to the same end result, that it's not us and them, oh, my time's done, now it's your turn. But the reality is that we've got a broader picture that says we are committed to the youth of our state, and we are committed to make sure whatever it takes for them to be set up for success and to meet these needs, we're committed to making it happen and own that. And I think that's the powerful thing that can happen. And I think when the informal educating world and the formal educating world and the business community all become part of the same team and perceive together, some great things can happen. Do you have any examples that you know of in the economic development part of this discussion that you've seen people get excited or kind of that light bulb go off and say, wow, I really can make an impact here?
Absolutely. Let me give you a couple of examples. There's an after-school program that's been developed here in the Lincoln Public Schools, but certainly appropriate in all of our schools across Nebraska, called Road, Rails, and Race Cars. And this is a program that introduces and educates students in the middle school about the transportation and logistics field. They use college mentors, so college students are the mentors. Students from the engineering department come out and do the mentoring. But it also has vital industry partners that are supporting the program. And what we need to do is look at examples like this, look at examples like the Dream It, Do It program that's focused on the advanced manufacturing, and find ways to take those programs and spread them to all the schools across Nebraska.
And I think that's the exciting thing that's happening right now. We see this great movement and a wave for this year specifically, just coming to connect and to make people aware of these wonderful opportunities that occur from Scottsbluff to Omaha and every point in between. I think that's an amazing thing that we get to be a part of. That's a privilege in so many ways, that we get to impact and mold and form these young minds and help them take on this great project. Jim, when you look at the educational community in the formal world, as your role represents, you've spent a lot of time recently having to restructure even how we, not with standards and our guides and kind of a strategy. Can you tell us a little bit about the formal strategy of our standards and how those have been taken to create this path for our students?
Well, our standards and also the standards that are happening nationally are talking about integrating the science practices, the engineering practices, the doing of science, the content knowledge of science, the things that we see in life, earth, and physical sciences, and connecting them to the real world situation. So both our standards and national documents are all pointing towards that direction for that. There's also a lot of research going on into what is effective science and the realization that effective science is taking place in out-of-school programs. It's not just in the classroom.
And I think that the reality, at least from my perspective, I spent a lot of time alongside of teachers representing the informal education and partnering. And I think it's a relief when a teacher in that school day that has all these other demands knows that we're not coming in there as a part that's taking away or diminishing that role, but trying to reinforce and strengthen that. And that when we're creating these out-of-school experiences, I think it's very important that we keep those standards at the forefront of our thinking, that instead of just putting together an activity or an experience, we have to make sure that we're in step with this strategic plan and this strategic consideration that's been put in motion, that those standards aren't just black and white pieces of information somewhere tucked away, but they really are a guide and a lens for us to look for. How can informal educators or people watching right now in their community, how could they partner and be an extension of that work that you do in the Department of Education?
They can take a look at the standards, which doesn't sound like the most fun thing to do with the world, but just start getting familiar, talking to teachers, talking to what do we have, and the realization of what you have in your informal science education, what you can provide in the OST programs to enhance the science experience. It's get out there and do it.
And I think that could be maybe one of the most powerful messages we can extend to those viewing and watching right now, is that you don't have to have all the answers. You just have to be willing to be a guide and say, here's a track, here's a path, let's run with it. Let's see where this takes us. Let's see what the discovery, where is it going? I don't know. And I think that's a great relief if I don't have to have all of the answers and all the information stored in my head or that knowledge base, but to know that this is part of the discovery. It's part of this path and this journey. When you look forward to the future of Nebraska and our workforce, what area of personal concern? I know there are things that, what do you think is the thing that grips your heart, Catherine, that you say, this is really a personal interest to me?
One of the things that we're focused on as we're looking at the projections for 2010 to 2020 is the increased demand that there will be for those STEM jobs, STEM-related fields in our Nebraska economy. So what's going to be really important is what can we do from a Department of Labor or Economic Development position to support education in enhancing the opportunities for all students to have that STEM experience and maybe then become interested in those STEM fields. I think the out-of-school time programs are really important because the children are getting practical, hands-on experience, applying the academic rigor that they're learning in the classroom every single day to a practical experience. And I think that's going to further develop the number of children that stay in school, that graduate, that go on to higher education, whether that's a 2-year or a 4-year process for them, and then enter those jobs in the Nebraska economy.
I think you touch on an important point, too, that it's important for us as a society to create a culture that respects, like you said, trades and manufacturing, that it may not be a 4-year degree that's right for every student, but that a 2-year degree or a 2-year experience of preparing for a very specific skill set is huge, and it has great impact for us to be a strong player, not only nationally, but globally. And I go back to touch on something that you mentioned, I think both of you brought up, and I'd like to hear, as we kind of close down this part of our programming today and discussion, I'm curious about how can we set up kids for success? Because we know that confidence in learning comes when they feel that sense of pride. What happens or what can we do as if there's a parent watching right now or a community leader in their area, what can they do to bring the kids to a place of succeeding? Any ideas or suggestions on that?
I think the one thing I would throw out is to continue to find ways to demonstrate the academics in practical experience, because once they're out in the job, it is the practical application of your education that becomes so important. And I think for a lot of students, especially those that are kinesthetic learners, learning in a different way, you need to provide the variety of the way to learn the subject matter that you're trying to teach.
That's absolutely right. It's going to be great. I think it's an exciting time personally. I'm thrilled because when I look ahead, I see bright minds, excited learners all over our state. And I know this, that when a child in an after-school setting, maybe it's a little more not the pressure of that classroom and a test, when they can experience a success and you can high-five them and say, that's it, man, that's amazing, something happens when they have confidence, because then they can go back to the classroom the next day feeling a success, and we can build layers of success on top of each other, which I think is going to be the greatest thing that we can do. When all of these players and all these pieces, we come together because we're all committed. And you can do that too. Whatever community you're in, I think it's the challenge of this discussion today. What can you do? Maybe you have a passion, maybe you have a skill, maybe you have an interest, or maybe you're just curious enough about something that you'd like to lead a discussion and take a child to a new place. Thank you so much for sharing your perspective and this opportunity to look at our state on a broad scale of what can happen when people work together. One of the exciting elements about this work in Nebraska is that we already have a strong base of programs that we can build on. I've already served in 83 out of 93 counties in Nebraska, from one end of the state to the other, and found that people are ready to have an experience that they can join in together with a parent, a grandparent, and young children, all finding out that discovery and innovation is a thrilling journey. With the Nebraska Museum Association and the Strategic Air and Space Museum, we've committed ourselves to creating dynamic experiences that are fresh and new, monthly, seasonally, always changing, so that for you, we can be a great resource and a partner to help you. What do you think about STEM as a learning opportunity? Do you have STEM or OST experiences in your community right now? Join in the conversation on Twitter at #OST. Now let's move on to a discussion of a few other programs that are currently providing Nebraska youth with rich, hands-on STEM learning opportunities outside of the school day. Here to talk about how school community partnerships are being implemented across Nebraska are representatives of programs that are engaging Nebraska youth in hands-on, expanded STEM learning opportunities. Today I'm joined by Dr. Elizabeth McCarron, Education Director at Omaha Henry Doorly Zoo and Aquarium, Dr. Brad Barker, Associate Professor at UNL and 4-H Cooperative Extension, Gwen Williams, the Program Director for Collective for Youth in Omaha, and Jason Novotny, the Industrial Technology Teacher at Gretna Public Schools and Skills USA. Thank you so much for joining us. I think, first of all, let's just start by hearing a little bit about what your programs involve and what they're doing to fill this need in out-of-school time experiences.
Well, great. At Omaha's Henry Doorly Zoo and Aquarium, we've developed our programs for our youth so that children starting in age 1 or 2 can go up through this career ladder of STEM education. So they can start off by being introduced to basic skills that they need, 21st century skills with observations, color pattern. Then they move up into our youth programs where there are classes and day camps and activities. And eventually they become part of our youth volunteer program, where that's what they can start exploring the different careers, working in the animal areas, start working on global issues, working with other countries, with other students, and then finally entering into that internship and then hiring process.
That's fantastic. I think you have a very elaborate, probably out of our state, one of the most elaborate programs going from that young to the advanced learner. Brad, tell us about your work.
Thanks, Ken. So, 4-H is the part of UNL and part of UNL Extension. And we've been around for over 100 years. And through those 100 years, we've done science and out-of-school time for, like I said, over 100 years. Currently we have different programs like Power of Wind, environmental ed programs, but I think our most visual program is the robotics program, the 4-H robotics program. We've been lucky enough to be funded for 2 national programs. We've scaled up our program to have a national audience, and currently we do robotic competitions here in Nebraska. Nebraska 4-H is the lead organization to provide those competitions. And just to give you a view of the scope of what we do, this year we have 98 teams registered, over 700 youth are involved, and hundreds of volunteers help us with those competitions.
It's exciting work, and I can attest from traveling from all across the state, I run into those programs and the result of what you're doing everywhere. It's fantastic. Gwen, tell us a little bit about your work and why you're excited about making an impact and a difference.
I get excited because I get to engage the kids in hands-on learning. I get to get dirty with the kids and go around to different programs. I'm in charge of 25 different programs in Omaha. 18 elementaries and 7 middle schools, and get the excitement going, and making sure that all the programs are having hands-on engagement programs where they get to get out in the dirt, go out to the parks, tromp around in the wetlands and all different kind of stuff where they get excited about learning, and then they bring that back to the classroom.
It's fantastic. Last but not least on this panel, we want to hear about how this Skills USA and the work that you're doing in that classroom, how does that merge together and what's going on?
Well, Skills USA is a partnership between students, teachers, and industry to ensure America has a skilled workforce. We have about 300,000 members nationwide, and my chapter alone at Gretna has about 25 members. We basically do 2 parts with the kids. We have a big leadership aspect where we take the kids out on industry tours. We bring people in from the community to talk about employability skills and let kids see what type of skills they need to have to go out on a job. And the other part of it that's really important is the competitions. The kids can sign up and learn a skilled trade and practice that trade and go and compete against other students from other schools and see how they do.
It's fantastic, and I think a common element that we all share is informal education components. We're always working in the shadow or alongside of the formal educators. Tell us from your experience how you see your role as kind of dynamic and different, and yet at the same time complementary when you see it dovetailing and partnering with the school system. Anybody want to jump in on that?
I can jump in on that. It's really interesting. There's a gray area sometimes, and when you're working with the school districts and working in informal science education, and you're giving them students different experiences. The kids, what we can do is have the experts there to work with the students to help facilitate the teachers and in expanding the concepts that they're learning in class. But then we also can give that hands-on experiences. For example, some of our global programs with South Africa, yes, we have students that are in the classroom and we're working with teachers and they're doing some of the same activities, but then we have that group of youth that are coming after school or coming on the weekends and doing the same thing, but a little bit more in depth. So they're the ones who are actually talking to the kids directly.
And it's important for us, I think, for those watching to understand that as informal education organizations, we're still very serious about education. Mm-hmm. It's education is why we exist, and we want to create that excitement. Brad, why don't you address a little bit either that or also the idea of what role do you think these competitions that you alluded to, that your leadership through 4-H with the robotics, what kind of place do you think competitions have?
Well, I think they're important. I'm not sure the research has really backed up the importance of competitions, but just looking at the numbers involved with what we're doing with the robotic competitions, starting in 3 years ago, we had 26 teams, and we didn't really advertise that we were doing this robotic competitions. 3 years later, we have 98 teams. 3 years ago, we had 1 site for a competition. Now we have 6 sites. So the growth has just been exponential. So whether or not it's good for learning, I think it is, but it really engages the kids. They really enjoy the competition.
It's that whole idea of creating that atmosphere of success, excitement, and that learning is fun. Yeah. It's a great thing to remember. Yeah. And I think at least by your work with the Lego Mindstorm platform, it's really also produced a ripple effect of benefit for robotic discovery and exploration beyond just that particular thing. And I think that's strictly related to the success of the grassroots penetration that you've had in the state. Gwen, when you're looking at your role, taking these kids and making them excited, where do you see that people who are watching right now, maybe it's a mom or somebody in the community that's interested, where do you see the merger or the benefit from what you're doing and from the general population? How could they get involved or how could they be supportive to what you believe in and do so well?
Well, one, if you're talking about the adults in the young person's life, then any opportunity that they have to experience new things, go to any company. The companies should, different businesses, open up their doors, show them what you do, not just tell them what you do, but show them what you do. And then really tie that to what they're learning in school. Another way, we took a group of kids to Arbor Day Farms, because they were learning about tree classification in class. And so then we brought tree classification to life in Arbor Day Farms, and where they actually got to go and look at the trees and then classify those trees. And we looked at the erosion, we looked at everything that was around that, and then took that back to the classroom. And their test scores after that were just phenomenal. It was ridiculous. And parents like that because nobody wants their kids staying at their house when they're 30. So it's very
It's an important part. I guess that's an ultimate goal, you know?
It is.
Failure to launch would not be a good thing. Hey, Jason, with the work you do, I wonder, do you have any point of reference when you see maybe there's somebody who's kind of struggling in that more formal environment? What do you do to shadow, to mentor, to ignite? What do you find the best thing that happens in the world that you deal with? How do you cause that student to succeed?
You know, sometimes with us, some of my stuff will start in the classroom. I may have the student in class and then they want to be involved with skills, which we primarily do after school. You know, sometimes they're just not getting it in class. You know, maybe their friends aren't there, things like that. And their buddy is in the skills chapter. You know, they get together with their buddies afterwards. Their buddy helps build them up. I help build them up. We practice a little more. We help to develop the skills that weren't there. You know, if they want to be a better welder, we run more beads, we run more rod, and we help them become a better welder. We show them different things to do. You know, and it just helps that kid become better and have better confidence for themselves.
And I think that whole foundation of confidence is where really success is really breeding, and because they find that confidence then lends them to go back to the classroom and approach it maybe with new confidence, new courage, new skills. And maybe it's in our world as the out of school time frame, maybe it's a little more relaxed and the pressure's not quite as strong, so somebody can kind of feel the freedom to fail. Yeah. How do you see failure as a good thing? We could all probably with science know it's good. How does failing help in that environment?
Yeah, we welcome failure. And the thing with the robotics is, you know, there are multiple ways to do any one task. And so if it doesn't work the first time, you can always go back, change it, and do it the second time. And it's a great way to learn. You know, when you fail, you do it again, you succeed, you've learned something.
And this is kind of a unique thing because now that I'm on staff at the Strategic Air and Space Museum that hosts that big event, I've been in both places, taking groups there and now hosting that event with you. I think one of the things that's so amazing is that grandma or an aunt and uncle or somebody comes tagging along and they're just kind of there for the kid, and the next thing you know, all of a sudden they're the ones who are right there in the midst and learning, and they leave so impressed because they're proud. They're saying, look what my kid did. Yeah. What do you see at the zoo and aquarium? What do you see as your greatest opportunity? It may not be to create this great academic, but what do you see as the most fulfilling role in this informal education impact that you have?
What I see personally, what keeps me going in informal science education is exposing these children to all kinds of different experiences, different situations, seeing really cool and exciting things, hands-on activities. But you know you really made that impact when the eyes start glittering, and it just encourages you to keep providing and producing more activities, more opportunities for them. It's those sparkles in the eyes. You know you have them.
Yeah, and isn't that what we kind of live for, that moment? And I had a child at a program I was doing. I think I was in Imperial or it was somewhere out there on the road, and it was an amazing time because this kid was struggling, and all of a sudden you hear this, wow, I didn't think I could do it, but I did, and I can do anything. Isn't that what we want, is kids to know they can do anything? And so let's talk specifically now, just for a little bit, how do those people watching right now, what would you do to encourage somebody to connect their community to create an opportunity for those kids to say, I can do anything? Any suggestions, ideas, or things that you've experienced that you'd be able to pass on?
Well, I would suggest not every community has a nature center or a museum or different facilities, but I encourage the whole community to get involved. There was some discussion earlier about businesses. Open up your door and become involved. I don't think people realize just opening up the door and saying, hey, this is how I take money at the bank, or this is how I do the cash register. A prime example, X-rays. my son had an x-ray on his ankle. And so I asked the doctor, hey, this is a great learning opportunity. Can you bring this in and start explaining? So I would say the community getting involved and just providing those teachable moments at any given time during the day.
And I think it's so important to take the pressure off of feeling. You know, we addressed it earlier, and we should reaffirm it now. You don't have to be the one who knows everything. I think sometimes we get this idea that some educator somewhere knows the answer, so I'll find them and put you there, rather than guide them through a journey of discovery. I'm kind of curious when you say they're muddy and they're climbing around. What do you think, what's the benefit of that? Why is that necessary? Why shouldn't they just be sitting still quietly at a desk with their hands folded? Why is getting dirty and climbing through the wetlands, why is that important? What happens in a child when that goes on?
The spark, the creativity, the innovation that they start thinking about, the different things that they relate things to, make it exciting for the kid. Seeing different textures, feeling the wetness on their feet or their hands, and feeling the gushiness of that soil as they put their hands in it, and hopefully not throw it at anyone. But sometimes that happens. Yeah. But those experiences spark a kid's interest and create innovation, and they stem other stuff from that and create opportunities for other kids. Hey, did you see this? Did you know that this happened? Well, let me show you. And so then the kids are teaching other kids, and everybody's learning all at the same time. Learning is a journey, and everyone has to partake in the process. And the adults don't have to know everything. And it's okay to say, hey, well, let's find out together. And then that's what they do when they're outside and doing activities.
And I don't know about you, but I think one of the greatest rewards I have is maybe at a family science night or people at the museum, and you see a table, a small table, and you've got maybe a toddler there, a big brother or sister maybe in 4th grade, mom, dad, and grandma and grandpa all working on a project or a task, and they're all sharing in this experience of discovery, and it wasn't formal. We didn't put it on the board and say, this is what's going to happen, but the dynamic happens. And to me, that intergenerational learning environment is so powerful when everybody leaves, because they not only had time together, they learned things together, they helped each other, there was assistance and guidance, and all the best of what happens in learning, I think, occurs in that atmosphere of loving people who care about other kids come together. And I think that's one of the most powerful things. When Skills USA, tell us a little bit more for those who may be watching. Maybe they think, I've got a skill. How could Skills USA be a model or a pattern for other communities? Like Elizabeth said, there may not be a museum there may not be a science center. What could Skills USA kind of be an example or an encouragement for our viewers?
You know, Skills USA is very broad. They've got over 90 different competitions, anything from healthcare to a skilled trade to a technical trade. And so as we start preparing kids for competition, you know, we always need help and mentoring. You know, I know so much about certain things, but I don't know anything about photography. I don't know anything about medical nursing, you know, and so I need those people in the community to come forward and say, hey, I know some about this, you know, give me what the student needs to know and let me have an opportunity to work with them. We're not asking for you to help them every night, but, you know, could you help a night or two a week? Could you help on the weekend? Maybe you do it as a side business. Would you be willing to take a student that has an interest in it and really pique their interest? Really show them and teach them, because I can give you students that are interested. I need someone that will take them to the next level and really light that match and really get them inspired about what you do.
And I think it's important, again, for people to realize that for some of those kids, we've got wonderful jobs right now that we can't fill in our state, because people maybe think that a more academic path is really where value is in our society, our culture. We haven't done a very good job maybe sometimes of raising the level of that skill set. I think it's so important for people to know that's good, that's legitimate, that's real. And it's vital for our success and for finding the right path for guiding these students on. Talking with some colleagues out at MIT, they challenge, and I don't know about you, but I know what it's like to be the dumbest man within miles, you know, because when I step foot on that campus and here's this place where all these bright, brilliant minds are, and I'm like the dumbest guy for miles, but I can do something some of them can't do. And they said, Ken, if you could get kids in Nebraska just a little more curious, a whole new world of invention is going to open up. And I really took that as a challenge, realizing that I didn't have to be the genius, because some of those people are so smart. But if I can learn and listen to what they know, I've got an ability to help a 3rd grader get it. And so we've all got different skills. We've all got different parts to play. And it's so important that we see the future of our state. And those watching right now to know we all play a part. It's not going to change. We're not going to make a difference. We're not going to make an impact if we just make excuses. We have to make a difference. And to make a difference, we have to know, what do I have? What do I know? What can I do right now? And use that and give that and share that and give it away. And boy, I think some amazing things are going to happen. And when we get together as colleagues like this, the dreams and the opportunity are amazing. And my hope is that maybe teachers are watching and they can find a friend in an informal educating partner that we can come alongside and lift them up. They've got a huge task, but we can be a great player, a cheerleader for their role, and in turn, maybe bring something to the table. Brad, in your role, when you see this merger with community and this experience, maybe it's with the educational community, maybe it's just with the people at large, what would be a dream or a hope that you could say the very best thing that could happen or occur? What does it look like in your mind?
Well, for me personally, I'd like to see clubs and after-school programs in all these communities, and all of these children have, experiences in STEM. I think that's where we need to be, where we need to go.
Absolutely. And I think it's really important as we have had this opportunity and this discussion today, that we know that we've got to make a commitment, that we've got to kind of overcome our fear and step up and say, let's do this, let's make a difference, and let's go forward. And I think some amazing things will happen. I want to thank you so much for the work you do. I truly respect it and value it because you are making a difference. And I hope that you'll inspire other people. You've been a great contribution to this discussion. As we look forward in our state, what does our future look like? What do our children's learning opportunities look like? What does out-of-school time learning look like? It's up to you. You're the part, you're the player, and you could be the next piece of causing this whole landscape of STEM education to change. We've had a great time with all of our panelists today, and they've hinted at a diverse array of programs and partnerships that are available throughout the state for our youth with expanded STEM learning opportunities. And I challenge you to join us in making 2013 a year of STEM discovery in the state of Nebraska. It's going to be exciting. While numerous expanded learning opportunities are available right now, we still need to provide more for the youth, especially those from our state's most challenging, high-poverty educational environments with high-quality expanded learning opportunities and support they need to thrive in school and in life. We are encouraging adults across the state to share the knowledge of STEM subjects and the passion for working with youth with expanded learning efforts in your community. Reach out to community groups, schools, and out-of-school time programs to see what you and your business or your organization can do to grow the OST STEM opportunities that meet the needs of all of our Nebraska youth. Our future depends on it. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time on The State of Education, Nebraska.